Hi everyone, I'm here doing MONETISE course with Iman Ghazi. This is going to be an exercise about the SBA worksheet. S stands for C, B for believe, and A for achieve. So I'm going to read what I've been learning these last days, and I'm going to do my work on how I visualize my own story in my life, how I have been overcoming my struggles, and how I have become the man I am today, and what I expect from the future from now on, and why have I been embarked in this journey to my successful, or to my future self that is on purpose and who sees himself strong, successful, resilient, and overcomes all fears and all hesitation to live the life of his dreams. Okay, so SBA worksheet, this starts like S stands for C. The C part is about visualization, literally seeing what you want in your mind before it exists in reality. Most people don't understand the power of visualization. They are concerned about working harder, hustling harder, running around like headless chickens, and they avoid the easy win right in front of them. This easy win means like all those daily tasks that you know would help you grow, but you postpone, you procrastinate, and you don't permit yourself to embark because your past self is interfering with your ideal self, which is trying to get out of you, to give light to yourself today, you know. So, well, I'm trying to do my best speaking in English, but it's been a while. I'm from Spain, and I am not a very fluent English speaker because I've lost a little bit of practice, but I am on track now, remembering how I used to speak when I was living in England. And well, this is also an opportunity for me to improve my English skills that will help that will help my future self. So let's go on. There is something to think about. Have you ever woken up drenched in sweat from a nightmare? Your body had physical reaction to something that was only happening in your brain while dreaming. That's because your brain literally sees those mental frames, these visions in your mind, and interprets them as real, creating physical reactions. Your brain actually can't distinguish between something that it visualizes and something that it actually experiences, especially when you attach emotion to it. This is very important. Attaching emotion. It literally cannot tell the difference. With that one simple fact, you can shape your beliefs, shape your vision of what is possible, and change how you carry yourself in every situation. B stands for belief. Once you've seen it in your mind, the next step is belief, putting those intentions out into the universe through affirmations. Visualization is all internal, but affirmations give you a chance to project it out into the real world, whether written or spoken. Here I've made a mistake, and I am trying to sort it out because I've lost track of my writing. Well, B stands for believe and A for achieve. The final part is achievement, taking a line action that flows from your vision and beliefs. This is where most people get it wrong. They visualize the outcome and not the actions needed to get there. If you're visualizing yourself sipping pina colada by the beach, stop it. That's just daydreaming. That's what he says in his video. Okay, so you shouldn't visualize the outcome. You should visualize yourself overcoming your struggles, becoming that version of yourself that is stronger, that is more resilient, that is more patient, that is more faithful or focused. Okay, instead visualize the actual skills, characteristics and actions you want to embody. Visualize yourself taking consistent action, staying focused, going through a tough challenge, but pushing through. For example, think about an important skill in your business that you need to master. When you visualize, don't just picture the end result. Visualize the process, including the obstacles. Imagine yourself encountering resistance, feeling frustrated, and then finding the determination to push through. Visualize how you respond when things don't go as planned, when you face rejection, or when you hit a technical obstacle or hurdle. This mental rehearsal creates a blueprint your brain can follow when you encounter these situations in real life. The key insight here is that in your mind you can rehearse behaviors, build reference experiences, and program your subconscious for success before you ever take action. Let's get into how to create your SBA worksheet. Your story thus far. Your life story. Your struggles. Your struggles, your frustrations, your fears. How have you what your demons are? What's been your key points in your life that has transformed you into the version that you are today and may not be aligned with the version you need to project to achieve your goals. This is where you are going to document your entire journey up to now. This page is incredibly important because most people don't give themselves enough credit for what they've accomplished. Add photos, show in snippets of your life from your childhood until now. Think about your life as if it were a film. How would someone describe it? Include the struggles, the challenges you've faced, the obstacles you've overcome, and the moments that shaped who you are today. So let's start with this story of myself. I had quite a lot of difficulties when I was a child with parents that were very young and inexperienced and very, it was a quite toxic relationship between them. They end up divorcing when I was 13. My father was too toxic, I don't want to describe him as a narcissist because it is a term that is overused in these days. But I think he is. He's a kind of psychopath. Somehow he's not... he's gone through something that has wired his brain in a way that he has not been able to live life according to God's purpose, so to speak. Or I have never been showed love, genuine love from my father, and I've never seen him loving my mother. The other way around is the case. My mother was struggling with a partner that didn't support, that was all the time, like pushing her around, like making very hurting insults. He was mistreating her very badly. He was having drugs, alcohol, yeah, he was a bad father, very bad. He's still a bad father. I'm still in contact with him, but I try to avoid totally his presence and his influence over my mindset, because it's been very, very tough to deal with that father. I still love him because somehow I feel sorry for him, but it's a very tough relationship, and I don't know if I've really forgiven him for what he did in the past. I try to. Now I am a father myself, and I try to stay in contact with him, because I know when he's gonna die, I will somehow lose a part of myself, but it's not. It hasn't been a good part of myself, somehow I don't know why, but it's my father, and yeah, it is difficult. When it is your father, you expect something that you realize is never coming. You have to give that to yourself, and that has given me a lot of problems in my life to develop myself even. And my mother was struggling differently, but she was unstable, unbalanced. After my father, she had different relationships that were also toxic. So the problem was not just my father, but also my mother. And this has impacted me very, very strongly since I am a child. I remember when my mother, after I told her to separate, to split up from my father, because I was seeing her suffering all day, she was like suicidal. Because she was suicidal. She threatens to suicide, and she even tried. I think it was just calling, not she wasn't really going to do it, but she crashed her car. She took a lot of pills, and another time, as a child, you see those things, you feel really anxious. I was crying very hardly when I see my mother suffering like that, and she went mad. She went crazy when she was arguing with my father. She was very, very unpredictable. I felt very scary when I see my parents arguing. My father normally he was very cruel to her, but the one who started being too violent was my mother normally. But I think my father, I'm pretty sure my father was here to blame, more than my mother. But my mother was very, very I don't know how to say. It was difficult because there were two kids, in the relationship. It wasn't just something and they got married because she gets pregnant, not because of Lot, but because she get pregnant. Sorry, and this made me feel somehow guilty for their relationship, because my mother was very pretty. My father was also a handsome man, strong, handsome, half German. My mother was half English. We are living here in Spain. My parents were like my superheroes when I was a child, because looking at them, they were surfers. Both of them were strong. As I said, my mother was a beautiful woman. My father was a handsome man, a fit, handsome. Well, he looked fit. He was all weekends doing drugs and drinking alcohol. Nowadays he's an alcoholic, a total alcoholic. He drinks from the morning till he gets to sleep. But back then he wasn't so much into alcohol as today, but he was a very toxic mindset. My mother told me that my mother tend to use me as I am the older of I'm older than my brother, and she tend to use me as a kind of psychologist that could comprehend her struggles. And this was a very huge mistake, because she shaped my reality in a way that I wasn't prepared. And this made me quite a different kid, you know. And these feelings is accompanying me all my life, and I've always felt quite weird among people. And well, first I'm going to talk about what I've experienced through my parents, which is very complicated, and it is something that has shaped my whole reality. It is still shaping my reality today, I think. I haven't overcome it fully. But I am a father right now. I am a father of a 2-year-old baby. That is my world today, and I am doing all this because I want to overcome all these things and don't and overcome this heritage trauma that comes from far ago. It is not being easy. I've embarked myself in this journey since at least I was 20 years old or even less. I started to read books about self-help, about psychology, about overcoming scarcity mindset, about, you know, getting out your best version. And I haven't done too bad, you know. Today I am a fit man that aspires to become an entrepreneur in the fitness industry. Today I have a clear mindset. I've got rid of all toxic relationships, but I'm still struggling with this, you know, background and shadows in my present day. So that's what I am working on mainly today, on overcoming all this stuff. And this is very powerful. I think this exercise from Imam Ghazi, that he's a very young man and a very wise man and a very successful man. I admire him a lot, to be honest. He's inspired me first through YouTube, and now with this, I was hesitating about buying it or not, because sometimes, you know, I tend to untrust. I don't trust anybody in my life. So it's been very difficult decision for me to pay for this course, because I am not I'm not bad financially. I cannot say I'm bad. I'm very good financially, but at the moment I am not working, so it means a lot to do this kind of investment in myself, because I don't fully trust myself. So that's the real problem here. It's not that I don't trust people, but I don't fully trust myself. And in this case, he represents what I would like to accomplish somehow. I don't think I'm going to get that high, because I am much older than him. I am 42 years old, and well, I have worked very hard on myself, but you know, I have I don't know. Time will say, but I don't really pretend to become so successful. I just want to become a self-realized, a self-made man, like someone who is proud of himself and loves himself unconditionally. That would be very helpful. And I want also, of course, I want to become financially free. That's for sure. And I'd like to live what I want. At this moment, I'd like to move to Bali with my son. I think that's a nice place for him to grow, and for me to go on developing my English and my business skills, and also to still go on track on my fitness business. I think that's a good place. I'd like to make this real, but let's go back to my parents. Okay, so first of all, when I was a child, I think, I'm not sure, but I think I was overweight, and I think this is because I was anxious, and kind of food was my refugee somehow. I think it I also enjoyed. I don't remember very well my childhood, but I think this could be the reason why I was overweight. I was an anxious child. I didn't feel safe at home at all. I was all the time expecting my fathers to break, arguing in a fight, and these fights could get physical, very physical. And I've seen my parents, not just my father, that is much worse, a man hitting a woman, but the other way around was even more common. My mother, I think, started physical fights, but my father was stronger, and obviously he could push her away very easily. So, yeah, I remember a scene, a very precise scene when I saw my father over my mother on their bedroom, on the bed, and my father was like kind of punching her on the. He break his t-shirt, like to show her that she was very angry, and she pushed her on the bed, and she started like punching them on the knees, not on the legs, not on her face or something like that, and not very strongly. My father is very strong, and I think I am pretty sure if he would have hit her very strongly, she would have fade away, for sure. But well, he wanted to make sure that she crossed the line. I think she first hit him, and then he hit her back. And despite it was not his stronger, like, because now I realize these things, but back then I was maybe 4 years old, and I was crying very out loud. I remember seeing my father, and I have a picture of that moment very meaningful in my mind, and now I can put a little bit more logic and more awareness of what was going on. But my father was not a good man at all. I don't think he was a kind of this physical hearted man, like I'm going to physically hurt you, but psychologically I've seen this. He's done that to me also, and he's very cruel, and he has something wrong in his mind. I know this is not normal. I've tried to have mature conversations with him, just letting the past in the past and trying to understand things just to heal, but he's not capable of this, and I've seen that since a very long time ago, hoping somehow that he would change, but I can see that he's not going to change ever. And this has made me being a person who cannot, or who is not able to set boundaries properly with friends, with people in general. And I've struggled a lot in my life because I tend to be too much pleasing, and then when I see something is going like too much of goes against my principles or my, I get like very angry sometimes, maybe too much. And it's this unbalanced personality that I have to, that's made me a little bit isolated. So yeah, this has been painful, very painful. I also had suicidal thoughts. I still have from time to time, but not in that way. I am aware that this is not like something I'm going to do. It's just like this life is shit. Like my past self comes to my mind and starts to being like cruel to myself, overjudging too hard my mistakes, my flaws, my disappointments, my sensitiveness sometimes, because I feel too sensitive to be a man. Sometimes I don't feel a proper man, and this makes me feel inferior many times. And yeah, I still feel inferior somehow. But at the same time, sometimes I feel even more superior, because it's like it's not very balanced. Sometimes, most of the time, I feel inferior, but sometimes I feel like, okay, I am in a higher position than these people that are all the time seeking for weekends and alcohol and stuff. That's mainly the kind of people I've been surrounded by, and yeah, to be honest, I could have chosen that path too, but I've decided that there is a better path, and discipline, and trying to do your best, and laugh at your past self when you overcome all these fears and overcome all these weaknesses is what I am aiming for right now. So I'm not all the time in this position, because sometimes, as I said, my past self comes to my mind and starts speaking like out loud, and it is difficult to deal with it. And sometimes I think I'm never going to defeat it completely, but hopefully for my son, I'm not going to let that part of me like taking over. So hopefully the one who's speaking now is the one who wins the battle, so to speak. Okay, so back to my parents' experience. My mother was, as I said, she was disciplined girl. She was a fitness instructor too. I resembled more like her than my father, much more. She was she felt like she thought of herself as a kind of a hero, superhero woman, something like that. She thought of herself that she should like save my father and the people who are struggling, but the one who was struggling most was herself, because she couldn't become aware of her flaws. She wasn't aware of the pain he was making on me and on the people sometimes. So that's difficult. She died 11 years ago by cancer. She was predicting she was going to have cancer, like her grandmother had. Her grandmother was called like her, Carmen, and she was always telling us that she was going to follow the paths, the steps of her grandma, and finally she did. So it's pretty curious this, but I think she did that to herself somehow. What I remember, my mother was always very energetic. She was all the time like with music, she speaks a lot and very out loud. She was very sportive. She thought of herself as superior to others. I didn't like that, but somehow I see her like that. She was pretty, she was fit, but she was very, very intense. She couldn't relax. She was all the time in drama. She was all the time expecting others to change. And she wasn't in peace. She was all the time in war mode. And if it was what her partner, it was me, it was someone else, and I didn't feel comfortable in my own house. Love was conditioned. Love was conditioned. If I didn't agree with her, or I said to her something that hurts, she rejected that love from me. I could feel that, and that also made me feel very disappointed and like alone. I felt always alone. In fact, what I was saying when I don't know if I finished the sentence, but when I told her that she should split up from my father, because all weekends, at least once a week, or there was a huge argument among them, and I told her, you have to get to break up from my father. You have to break up. You are going to die one day. She was threatening suicide, and I told her, you have to break up. And once she did, she sent me to live with him. And that was very tough. That was very tough for me. I was 12 years old, 13, 12 years old, and that break my personality. I was overweighted but very strong boy at school. I was all the time when I was until I was 12 years old, until I was with both of my parents at home. I used to be very problematic at school. I was all the time in the middle of fights. I was strong and I always win the fights. I nearly always win. People feared me when I was a child. I remember that. And I also failed at school. I was having very bad marks, very bad marks. And when my mother sent me to live with my father, that broke my spirit somehow. I got even more overweight. I got depressed. I was crying quite a lot, alone in my room. My father was like, I don't even remember. He was all the time drinking and he was unemployed. At that moment, he was unemployed. We were living in a shared house with one of his friends. We were sleeping in the same bed, and we came home very late at night that summer. I remember at least 3-4 in the morning. I was 12 years old. He was all the time drinking very much. And finally his mother, my grandmother, told us to live with her, both of us, my father and me. And at that year I changed a lot. I stopped hanging around with my friends that were also problematic, and I started focusing on my studies. I started studying. I realized that I could be a good student. I was getting very good marks when I started studying. My teachers couldn't even believe it. I started to get fitter and fitter. I started also to surfing, bodyboard. That was a kind of a blessing in disguise, because I started to realize that I could become whoever I aim for. You know, I got when I was 16, I got very super fit. I got very fit. I was very good at bodyboard. I was good at anything I put my focus on. And that made me feel like unbeatable somehow. But then again, I came back with my mother. I thought of myself as someone who could achieve anything. I was fit. I was doing good at school, at high school in this case, because 16 I was planning to become an engineer. I was very good at physics and at maths. I liked those subjects, and yeah, I was visualizing myself as an engineer, which was some of the professions, some of the most valuable professions. You know, I don't know if the term is correct. Valuable, one of the most well considered to become. You know, like very good salary and good profession. And then I was sent with my mother again, because my grandma, you know, she was old and she wasn't going to have me in her house forever. So I got back to live with my mother, and she was dating a guy that was teacher professor, English teacher. She was half English. He was a daydreamer. Like, he was a nice person, but he was heroin addict. He was smoking joints nearly every day, but he was, he wasn't a bad guy. He smoked joints, but he was quite clever, and he was quite good guy. But well, they decided to move to the south of Spain. My mother received a pretty good amount of money from her heritage, from her family. My mother was very well positioned, was quite well positioned when her father lived. And with this money, she bought a house in the south of Spain, and she wanted us to go with her. And I agreed, because I wanted to get rid of the language, the Basque language, which I was struggling with, and that made my marks considerably lower to get into the to be able to get into the career I was pursuing, which was naval engineer. So I decided to follow her steps, and when I get there, it was very beautiful, the house with a pool, but it was a nightmare again. She was all the time arguing with her boyfriend. We were very isolated we weren't in the town, we weren't in the countryside. I'm very isolated. There was no lights. I was all the time alone, missing my friends, missing my old lifestyle, and I started to feel depressed. I couldn't focus on my studies. I started to fail exams again. And also there were guys, very weird guys in the south of Spain that were trying to, I don't know what was, but I was receiving texts on my mobile phone from gay people, like I was someone was obsessed with me or something, and I felt like disgusted, and that's good. And my mother won't see so clearly that her relationship with that guy was not going to go well. She decided to sell the house, and we came back to the north of Spain, to the Basque Country, where I am right now. And I lost track of my dreams. I lost track of all my objectives. I started to feel very isolated. I couldn't get back to my old friends as I did previously. I felt indeed very isolated. I started to train again, because that was something that always helped me have some hope. And yeah, I was losing a lot of weight at that time. I was losing a lot of weight. I was obsessed to not becoming overweight again. So I felt a little bit I fear gaining weight again. I don't know why, but because I was very, very thin, but I feared that. I feared to get overweight again, and I was all the time running and eating very, very little. So yeah, that time this nutrition was also a handicap, because I think it affected a lot in my brain to be resilient. Hold on a second, please.